Namaste and Jai Mohanji, everybody, and welcome. My name is Pooja, and I'm one of the Mohanji Acharyas from Canada. Today, I'm really excited for this particular interview. I'm going to be interviewing Rakshita from Australia, who happens to be a Mohanji Acharya as well. She usually doesn't do a lot of interviews, so I'm really excited for this one. And to begin, I'm going to first welcome Rakshita and then let her introduce herself. Namaste, Rakshita. Welcome.
Hey, Mohanji.
Jai Mohanji. And as I was telling everybody, I said you should introduce yourself. So please introduce yourself.
I have nothing to say about myself other than that I am a dog of the tradition, and I've been chosen to be a servant of the tradition, which I'm very grateful for. Other than that, yeah, as a personality, yes, I work in an insurance organization as a business intelligence analyst. What else is there to say about me? I'm a very multidimensional being. You explore many aspects of me when you speak to me because I can speak on any topic.
Oh, that I can vouch for. You can speak on a lot of different topics. So that's why I'm looking forward to this particular interview. So Rakshita, so I do call Rakshita Didi. So I'll continue that tradition. So to just start off, I wanted to actually understand a little bit about your childhood. I know you had mentioned to me that you went through a difficult childhood. So I just want to understand, how did your childhood prepare you to be here today?
So my childhood was what not very normal, like how everybody had, right? I was brought up in a very orthodox Brahmin family, very ritualistic in a sense that everybody does what they need to do. Like my mom, in the morning, she reads Ramayan, and then she does Abhirami and Dadi and all of those kind of sacred chants and Lalita Sahasranam and Vishnu Sahasranam. So my house was always having this smell of all the great slokas that's always running. And my mom is a musician as well, so there is always some namasmaran happening in the home. So that's how that was my core childhood. But somewhere deep down, I always felt that I don't belong here. I had
You
everything.
don't belong on earth, or you don't belong in this family.
To begin with, I felt I don't belong to this family. And then as I grew up, I understood that I don't belong anywhere. I couldn't associate, or I couldn't attach with any, I couldn't attach to anything on earth. That only deepened and deepened and deepened when I attained my teenagers and college life. And I felt like I don't belong to this earth. Often I feel like I've been put into a jar and somebody has closed the lid, and I sometimes feel like I don't belong to this body. This is not my body. Like I'm just trapped in here. Like I'm something else. And sometimes I feel like it would have been great if I was in a boy's body because you could explore many things. I'm very inquisitive and exploring by nature. And then I felt this body, the woman's body, didn't suit at all. So, yeah, I mean, my childhood was very different in the sense that it was all pertaining to me. I couldn't associate with anything. And I've always felt that I'm different from everybody. And yeah, I couldn't gel into the normal lifestyle of everybody. Like I can't manipulate things. I was a very innocent child as a child. But that now, when I look back, is what cemented who I am today. Yeah, today I am being very unique, like what Mohanji says. I'm being extremely unique, and I accept that I'm unique only because I had all of these experiences. So I would never try to change anything of that. It was all meant to be.
Amazing. So, at what point in from your childhood, at what point did spirituality start, or just all of this together? Would you consider it being spiritual?
Yes, so I think I've spoken about this in one other Facebook live that I did last year as well. So because my house always had this namasmaran and all of these kind of a very orthodox kind of a setting, I was always glued to Hanumanji. Hanumanji is my favorite. Even as a child, Hanumanji was my favorite. But what happened was when I was in my, say, about say 13, 14 years, my mom and dad got separated. And it's a very huge shock for an Orthodox family because it was not very common at that point in time. I lost the faith in God because I never pray. As I said, I have a very different childhood. Like everybody goes to temple to pray for something. I had nothing to ask for. So I just say hi and then bye. That's all I do when I go to temple. I have never asked anything. But when my family got split, my only prayer that I had in my mind was like, I want them to come back together. But that never happened. So I lost faith in God and I totally turned atheist.
Ah, Interesting.
I was an atheist from my, say, about, say, 14 years until 2006. I was an atheist. 2006, I should have been what, like 24. Um, I was an atheist. I never believed in God, and I went into more of science, and by my inquisitive nature led me to more science. So I used to read about this power of subconscious mind when I was in my 11th and 12th, and I used to read about extrasensory perceptions and how to train myself in sensing energies and everything very scientific, how to read a person, like both gesture reading. And I went into numerology. I studied a little bit of astrology. I'm like, jack of all trades, but master of none, because of my inquisitiveness. I went ahead and explored everything to find out what it is like, because wherever there is no spiritual element to it, I went in there. But now I know that everything had a spiritual element to it. This is so funny.
Yeah.
But that's what I did. So I explored a lot of things, and 2006 was a comeback. 2006, I had a stage where I didn't have anything. Uh, I didn't have anything. So there is a saying that says, if God has to show himself to you, he brings you down to your knees. And that's what he did. So I didn't have a job. I didn't have food. I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't have anything. I was like literally like an orphan in the streets. And then my mom, she was not a Baba devotee, but then she told me that many people have told me that Baba is very powerful. So you go to the temple, which is very powerful temple in Malapur of Shirdi Sai Baba, and I wasn't ready to follow any Babas. And for me, at that point in time, I had a very bad. I'm sorry to say this for all the whoever is watching, but I had a very bad image of Puttaparthi Sai Baba in my mind because of, I don't know, I don't even know how it happened, but I had a very bad image. Now I feel like I've missed a chance to be in his presence, but at that point in time, fact is fact, it's the truth. So for me, the moment somebody said Baba, I only thought, oh, this must be this Baba, and I don't want to follow any Babas. And then I had this very heavy argument with people because I was an atheist. Understand, atheists are like argumentative, and I am. So I had this very thing. I keep telling people that if God existed before 3,000 years, he would definitely not know what I'm going through at this point in time. He had never been in a human body. He has never been in my time to tell me what I should do and what I shouldn't do. And I don't want to follow such gods. So that was my heavy argument, and people accepted, because if you take Rama, Krishna, everybody, they all existed about, say, 3,000, 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And then what do they know about a common man that's struggling today? Do they know technology? Do they know what is happening? At that point in time, this was my heavy argument, and there was nobody who could challenge me. So when my mom said, go to this Baba's temple, I went in because I always listen to my mom's intuition. My mom is very intuitive by nature, and whatever she says happens. So I went into this temple, and the first time I saw Baba's big murti, I just broke down. I have no idea why. I had no idea why. Like, I just cried for like good 15 minutes. People around were asking me, imagine like a 20-year-old girl standing there and crying uncontrollably. And then people were like, oh, yeah, are you okay? Like, yeah, I said, like, yeah, I'm okay. But I couldn't control, and I don't know why I was crying. And then that day the journey started. I came out of the temple, and then I received a call saying that you have secured a job. And trust me, it's like 45,000 rupees per month. It's like a huge money for a 24-year-old.
Yeah.
And then
And
within a
for
week's time,
somebody who's doesn't have anywhere to go, that's a good amount of money.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I got a house, Anand Sai Apartments, within 100 meters of Baba Temple within a
Wow.
week's time. Right. And then so many other things happened, which I don't want to go into details, but that's how the journey started once again with Baba. So I started learning more about who this Baba is. And then I understood that he lived like about 90 years ago before me. And I was very convinced that this is the kind of person that I want. I don't want to follow Rama and Krishna, who were like thousands of years before. Like,
Yeah.
I want to follow this person. So I started learning more and more. And then Baba also opened up to me. The more I asked questions, because I have been intuitive right from childhood, he started giving me answers, which was very convincing to me. And that's when I also understood that I have this power of intuition. I
Uh,
started using more of it. The only good thing that I did was, because Baba was not in the body, I never said to Baba that this is how he needs to come and respond to me. I never had any of those frames.
image.
So he could come and answer to me through various things. So he started answering me through books, websites, people, everything. So I used to be a voracious reader. I read a lot of books. So my first concrete thing was Osho, JK and Osho, these two people. And they actually feed your inquisitive, atheistic kind of a mind.
What is JK?
J. Krishnamurti, Jiddu
Oh, J.
Krishnamurti.
Krishnamurti. Okay, yes, yes.
So JK and Osho, I used to read a lot, but JK I couldn't align too much because I felt he was more pessimistic than optimistic. But Osho I could align quite a lot.
Yeah.
And Osho was I should say Osho was my first real guru in that sense, because like he gave me so much to the mind that is constantly asking questions. Because Osho's way is like he will ask you a counter question and make you find the answer within yourself. And right now that's what Mohanji does to me. So Osho will never give you the answer directly. He will confuse you to the point that you find your own answer. And that's what I like about Osho's style. And many people, when they attend my satsangs, they say like, oh, Rakshita, you never give an answer because I ask a counter question. And that's it. The answer lies there.
That's interesting that you just made me realize, because a lot of times I try to ask questions and I don't actually get answers. I'm left confused, but I think in that confusion you get the answers. You're right. In that confusion, they confuse you, but they give you the answer in that
The
confusion.
master shows you where to see. He never tells you what to
What
look.
to look. Yeah, as Mohanji always says that. Yeah, that's fantastic.
You will
See
get
this.
the answer based on where your awareness levels are at that point in time. And at that point in time, it will be a very convincing answer. But the key here is not to get stuck to that answer, because at that point in time, that answer was necessary. As you move up the ladder, the answer will change, and you must be open to be able to embrace the other answer as well. That's when the growth happens. Otherwise, you're stagnated.
No, I agree. But that also happens with any experience in life. Like when you go through any experience, you see that experience based on your awareness at this point. But as you're growing, you realize that there is so much. This particular experience had so many dimensions to it, and you only
Yes.
realize it once you grow.
Yes, but the problem is people. I mean, I speak to a lot of people, right? Like, cut me if I'm taking a lot of time. But the problem is people get stuck to that saying, oh, that day I got this answer, and now why is it all changing? But understand, my child, the change is the only thing that's going to happen. So you must move forward with it. When you were in the state of kindergarten, somebody gave you an answer because that was an answer that was needed at that point in time, right? But when you move up, you get a wider picture of what is happening in the world, what is happening around you, and then you get a different picture. So you have to keep moving along with it, otherwise you will be staying in the kindergarten itself. And that's what people don't understand. They become very guilty. Oh, at that point in time, if I had this awareness, you can't go back. You can't go back at that point in time. That's exactly where you need to be. And
Exactly.
you have done your job very well. Pat on your back that you have been so innocent, so ignorant, where you need to be with that exact awareness, because the time space junction works like that.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. So, so Didi, okay. So you said you started your journey with Sai Baba Temple. So did you continue then with Sai Baba's teachings for a long time?
Yes, but Sai Baba didn't just take me along with him, right? I know Sai Baba was a pillar of support behind me, just like how this man is. But then Sai Baba introduced me to various other things like Osho, J. Krishnamurti. Then he made me learn Bhagavad Gita. He made me ask so many questions, right? Like I'm a embodiment of all kinds of questions. Not today, but at that point in time, I
Yeah.
was an embodiment of all kind of questions. I asked him a lot of questions. Then he introduced me to Brian Weiss, and then I asked him this one key thing that I really asked is like, if after reading Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Vishnu Puran, and all of that, I had one question. So if you say that God is extremely compassionate, why would this God punish children with a tool called karma? This was one of the breaking, shaking things for me, because I had this question. And then came in front of me the book called Journey of Souls. I didn't make any effort. As I said, like Baba speaks to me through various resources, and this book came as an ebook on its own when I was doing some kind of a search. And then Journey of Souls gave me an amount of extreme clarity. But trust me, even before Journey of Souls came, Mohanji already came into my life, but I didn't realize him as a guru. So I started following. I mean, I asked some questions from Baba, and then the answer always comes from Mohanji's blog, which I didn't realize for a very long time. And when I realized that pattern, that it's always coming through Mohanji's blog, then I went ahead and cleared the cache memory, went into browsing centers, tried doing stuff, but then the answer would still come from Mohanji's blog. But then I never had this answer of why God would be punishing somebody with karma. I never had the answer. But at that point in time, Mohanji was already there. But I didn't connect to him as a guru because I felt like his stature is too much that I can't, such an ordinary person can't connect to a person like Mohanji. But then the feeling of wanting to have a guru was already burning, but very burning, very light. It wasn't heavy.
Yeah.
Journey of Souls cemented everything for me. Journey of Souls, it's by Dr. Michael Newton. I always recommend that book to everybody, for everybody to read, because it speaks about a person dies and then he comes back into another life. What actually instigates him to take another body? That in between phase is what he focuses on. Brian Weiss speaks about past life. We all know it. All Hindus know it. We are brought up with it. There is nothing new for me in that.
Yeah.
But then this one speaks about you are dead. You became dead, but then you came back. Why did you come back? What made you come back? And he speaks about this entire journey after death, before birth. And that was like a mind blowing thing for me, because he takes you through a journey of what happens after death. How long do you travel? Where do you travel? Who will come and pick you up? Who will come and speak to you? Where do you go? How do you cleanse yourself of all the trauma that you went through in your life? And then which classroom you go? Whom do you meet? Your spiritual name and your guide, your guru. And then they prepare you for the next life, and they tell you this is the next lesson you need to learn. Then they put you back into a tunnel. Then you come into the mother's womb, and then in between that they take you into a kind of a rehearsal room where you meet all of these people whom you're going to be meeting, including Puja. So we meet all of these people and they say, hey, you know what, I'm going to be playing this role, you're going to be playing this role, or we are going to be fighting like this, and this is where you need to apply your awareness. We laugh and we play this game. Oh, okay, fine, this is what is going to happen. We make all of those fun, and then we come into earth
And we forget everything.
and we forget everything, and that's the real game starts.
That's what the game starts. We forget everything in the
So
game.
now I understood that karma is not a punishing tool.
Yeah.
Karma is not a punishing tool. It is something that I have chosen for myself to evolve as a soul. So karma, that cemented for me that I am the one who's choosing everything. I'm the one who is doing everything. There is no God sitting there and doing anything. And after Mohanji came, I got a lot of clarity on this karma. Karma is a very favorite subject of mine, because the more you keep diving, the more you keep finding something. Then I understood that, okay, fine. After Mohanji came into my life, I understood that karma is God. We call God compassionate because he's providing me the platform. If he has not provided me with all of these people, if he has not provided me with this earth, if he has not provided me with this body, if he has not provided me with my ego, mind, intellect, personality, whatever that is, then how would I even exhaust my karma? In Sripada Sri Vallabha, there is a sentence that says, you have to uproot karma with karma.
You have to, sorry, what?
You have to uproot karma
Yeah.
with karma.
With karma. What does that mean? Like, explain that to me.
That means that, when there is a thorn that pricks into your foot in those days, they actually remove it with another thorn.
Ah, okay.
So where you lost, that's where you need to find. So you lost yourself into all of these desires. So fulfilling of those desires is where you uproot it.
Wow.
So you cannot work with karma without being back into this game, without being back into this body. So that means why God is compassionate, not because he is giving you food and all of that. He has provided this entire platform. I always say it looks like, imagine this, a God has given you the 5 different colors of Play-Doh, right?
Yeah.
What you do with this is absolutely your awareness and your karma. That's it. That is all there is. So there is no God sitting there with a tool and I'm going to punish you, or he says I'm going to do this to you, or I'm going to bring this enemy. No, he doesn't do any of that. He has provided you this platform to play called earth. Like, he has provided you a ground, he has given you the rules of the game, he has given you a bat and a ball, and he has given you counterparts to play with, and what you do is your karma. Simple. That is all we are doing here. The moment we understand that there is no pain, because because everything has been given, what am I going to do with it? So Mohanji says, choose kindness, choose love, choose unconditional love, choose
Unconditional love.
kindness and compassion. So when you choose that, then you are playing correct, you are playing the dharmic role. If you take the other rules, you can be unkarmic or non-karmic, or sorry, non-dharmic and karmic as well. So that's what we are actually doing in the world. So this, yeah, I forgot
So
what.
we saw no, but we just went in a different direction, which is great. I loved it. This was fantastic. Okay, so coming back. So yes, so you said so Sai Baba guided you through very different masters. So I wanted to actually come to Mohanji now. So I wanted to understand how you said you couldn't connect with him before, and because you thought his stature was a little bit high. How how did you connect? And I want to even know your first meeting with Mohanji.
Okay, this is all going to be a little bit cinematic, okay? But I mean, whether you believe it or not, it's up to you, but it's the truth.
No, I
So from
believe it, but you say it the way you want it.
so from 2013, I have been looking at Mohanji's blogs, and I know Mohanji, and I think at that point in time he was not in India. I think he was in Dubai, or rather he was in and out. So I used to read Biba's blog as well. Like I know her as Biba at that point in time. So I read Biba's blog as well about how she met Mohanji and her experiences with Mother Mary and all of that. So I used to follow these blogs. And then when I was going through, so even before Mohanji, I said I read a lot of Osho, right? So when the desire for having a living guru deepened in me, Osho in one of his satsangs had said that you cannot go in search of a master. The master has to happen to you, right? So those words stuck very deep within me that okay, fine, I cannot go in search of a master because I don't know who the master is first of all, and I don't know if I'm even eligible for a master. The only thing I could do is work with myself. So I started working with myself. I think this journey started in say 2010 2011. This journey started where I started working with myself. A lot of things I stopped telling lies even for silly things, like kids, we play tell lies for silly things, like and all of that. I started taking things very seriously and stopped telling lies and being very disciplined with myself, being very nice to myself and nice to people around. And like, yeah, I did a lot of changes within me, like little, very little, taking care of this body, even that. It's a huge thing for me. I've never done that before. Um, so I started doing all of this, and I started considering myself as this temple, this body as a temple where the god, if he has to come and sit in the garbhagriha in my heart center, that means how pure should I keep the temple. So I started working on my purity levels. um, and then
Actually,
and then
sorry to cut you off. Can you come back to this? Because I'm really interested to know. So, can you start a little bit explaining a little bit deeper? So, when you said you started working on yourself and increasing the purity, what do you mean? Like, what else did you do?
what did I do? So I used to eat egg at that point in time. I cut down on egg, and I started I generally never watch TV, so I never contaminate myself. I got away from people who are not good enough for me. And then I used to do a lot of slokas. I used to read a lot of slokas. Then I did all of that. That at that point in time, which made me feel pure. Now when I think about it, I feel it was all ritualistic because there was no connection. But at that point in time, I felt that is what I need to do. I need to the mom see, this is the thing, right? This is the kind of mindset that people have, and social conditioning, that if you are spiritualistic, then that means you do a lot more slokas, you do a lot more rituals, you lit lamp, and you chant and all of that. That's what I also did.
Yeah.
But I considered that being more pure, and keeping this body as pure as I can, like taking shower a couple of times, and then ensuring that you are not going to a place which is lower vibration, because as I said, like I'm very intuitive and energy sensitive right from childhood.
Yeah.
I avoid any kind of crowd places because something happens to me when I go to the crowd now, which I'll explain later. I'm very uncomfortable with the crowd. So I always avoid crowds. And so I started avoiding crowd even more after this, because I felt like something happens to me when something is happening to me, why would I go there? So I cut down on all the nasty friendships that I had. And yeah, I did all of that. Like I used to say some silly lies because
Yeah.
feels good.
Yeah.
I stopped saying lies, and decided that I'll only speak the truth from there on. But then that also took me to a different tangent where by speaking lies, I've hurt people. So it took me a long time to understand that yes, you should speak truth, but then in a very unhurtful way, or just keep silent. But then that's what I did. Like I generally was very straightforward, and it helped me that way. So I did all of that, and then read a lot of good books, kept in association with good people, spent a lot of time in reading such blogs and reading the life history of masters. And yeah, this is what I meant by increase my purity levels, in a sense. Like I was more with myself. I was spending more time with myself, if I have to say that.
Okay.
Not internally, but at least externally. Internally, I didn't know how to go and what I need to do, but I think it was somehow it was actually pushing me internally, because more answers, the more I started asking questions, Baba started answering within me. The answers will come within me, but then I still didn't know how to take it. So I was still looking outside. So I was always exploring, I was always reading some books, and I was always doing something. And then even the conversations that I had was very intellectual in terms of what people could do and all of that. I was an Acharya at that point in time itself, guiding people with the little knowledge that I had. I'm always a sharer. I always share what I have.
Yeah.
So I used to help people, give them books, speak to them about all of these things. And yeah, I did all of that. So I always kept myself in that good association, which kept me into the path.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by I increased my purity levels. It's not now when I say purity levels, that's completely different.
Yeah.
That's what I
Fantastic.
did. So I did all of that, and then slowly I think somewhere I don't know, with grace of gurus, I think I opened up myself to the possibility of having a guru, having a living guru, because a Baba was always there. Trust me, Baba was always there. Baba is still there. Baba is Baba is me. I'm inside him. There is no separation.
Yeah.
But then I needed a living guru because I am more of a touching feeling kind of a person. I'm a very emotional person. I'm a bhakti yogi. I was a bhakti yogi. And I wanted that touch and feel of a guru, to press his feet, to be able to be in the presence, to be able to serve, to be able to talk, to be able to melt in the presence.
Yeah.
So for a bhakti yogi like me, a physical presence of the master was extremely important. I couldn't just look at the stone statue of Baba and connect to him, like connect to him in a sense, connect physically to him. I cried, and there are many nights that I have cried to Baba that, why didn't you give me a chance to just touch your feet for once, right? Like, why wasn't I even an ant in your presence? But then the answer is like, how do you know that you were in present? So I can't answer that question. So you know the way Baba works and Osho work, everybody works like asking counter question, and then I keep my mouth shut. Okay, fine, no more. So that's how it happened. That then so every time this feeling of I want a living guru comes up, Osho's message snapped me down, saying like, okay, you work with yourself. When you are eligible, you will get a guru. So I worked more on my eligibility levels without knowing what my eligibility level is. But I was just working with, I said like, someday this will happen, right? And then I think 2013 or 2014, I was reading Mohanji's blog, Babaji Beyond Definitions. And then in that, there is a third Babaji Beyond Definitions. I think it's blog 3. It speaks about when the disciple is ready, the master appears. And I felt like, some message is coming. What is it? Because this statement is what changed me from looking for a guru to work with me. That's a very key statement for me. And then that same statement appeared in Mohanji's blog. And then somehow I felt like maybe Mohanji is my guru. Maybe, he's a living guru. He's connected with Baba. He's connected with Babaji. And he speaks about Hanumanji and all of that. So maybe he's my guru. But I wasn't still convinced that Mohanji is my guru, because you can't go in search of a guru. What if he isn't? Right? So I gave this don't beat me. But then I gave this rule to Baba. I always play with Baba like that only. I give commands. He is my servant. He executes it for me. Like, it's a role play that we play.
Yeah.
Silly game that I play with Baba. I said, Baba, if Mohanji is my guru, I wouldn't take any effort to meet him. He has to come and stand in front of me.
Yeah.
And that happened.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah.
So then 2015, I went for past life regression. I couldn't get anything out of it, but my husband went for past life regression. My husband was not into any of these things. He says, like, you keep your philosophy with yourself, don't even share with me. So I don't share anything with him. I never had the comfort of sharing about spirituality, Bhagavad Gita, Baba, nothing with him. He's like, I'm good, I'm doing good. And that's it. That's all matters to me. I don't care about any Babas of the world. So I've never shared with him anything about Mohanji. But then in his past life regression, he had some key masters come in, and he said, like, why are you trying to know your past when we are here to see your future? And then Anant had asked, like, okay, so what's my future? So so they had said that go and meet Mohanji.
Go and meet Mohanji.
So I was like so shocked. I am the one who was following Mohanji. Nothing happened to me in my past life regression, but for him, they have said the answer. So he actually, I think, I don't know, you have to ask him, but then I think he started exploring about Mohanji only because he knows that I was following Mohanji. So 2015 December, we were in India. And I didn't know that we were going to meet Mohanji. I had absolutely no clue about all of that. And I didn't even know that he was in Bangalore. But Anant had secretly planned for a meet with Mohanji because December is my birth month. And like, he wanted to give a birthday surprise for me. And I think in the corner of the mind, he also wanted to know what his future was. So his time had come, journey time had come, I think. So altogether, on 30th night, he's telling me that 31st morning we are meeting Mohanji. Usually Mohanji does Puttaparthi trips during that time. So 31st evening, he's leaving to Puttaparthi to spend the new year in Puttaparthi, but he was in Preeti Didi's house. So 30th evening, he's telling me that I think Monia was the PA at that point in time. Rajesh Kamath was also there, but Monia had confirmed that we will meet at 10 o'clock on 31st, and that was happening on 30th evening. And then Anant is telling me that we're going to be meeting Mohanji tomorrow. And I was like, what? What? Are you serious? And then he said, yeah. So then I couldn't sleep the whole night. I was excited. There are so many things that happens within you when you're going to meet your guru. One, are you really eligible? The mind asked me this question. Are you really eligible for the Satcha Master? Really? Because I told Baba that I know that you would have come in another body, right? You show me that body. That was my thing. So that means Baba had come in Mohanji's body. Yeah. So that was one excitement too. Am I really eligible? Really, are you eligible for meeting such a master? And are you going to be meeting this master in person? What is he going to say? Is he going to accept me? He's going to reject me, saying, "Oh my God, you're full of shit. Just get away." Because we are, right? Like, see, I am a bundle of all kind of karmic. Like, I can't just speak for Rakshita's body. I have been in so many other bodies, collected all kind of garbages in so many lifetimes, and that's sitting as a personality here. So I'm full of garbage, only garbage, nothing else.
I think you need to clarify when you say you've been in different bodies, meaning in different lives. Let's just clarify that. People, otherwise, I don't know what people are going to think. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yes, I know what you mean. Yes.
Yes. So many lifetimes, right? Like Bhagavad Gita says, you live for like 900,000 lifetimes before you attain, before you come into this body. So who knows how many lifetimes I lived, and every lifetime I have collected a lot of garbage.
We all have.
Yeah. Let me only speak about myself. Why offend somebody? Somebody's break their body.
I'm speaking for myself also.
So I had all of these thoughts and I couldn't sleep. I really couldn't sleep. Until 3 o'clock, I couldn't sleep. And then I finally, like, Mohanji, if you really my guru, make me sleep now. And trust me, I felt his hands here. And within seconds, I slept. At that point in time, I've never met Mohanji. Trust me, the communication has already happened.
Yeah.
That point in time, I didn't meet him, but I felt his hands on my head. And then
well, the communication was happening for a while, right? Like through the blogs and everything. So he was communicating.
No, it was a one-way communication. This time it's a two-way communication.
Now it's a two-way communication.
So then next day we went to Preeti Didi's house, and remember my statement to Baba, he has to come and stand in front of me. He wasn't there when we were sitting in the hall, and then he walked like a flash from the right hand side from his bedroom wearing white and white. And then he saw me. And then I started, like, whatever happened in Baba temple happened again.
Started crying.
Cried and cried. He allowed me to cry. And then the first statement that he said was, we've been waiting for this meeting for lifetimes. And that said everything. Everything. His connection with me through past lifetimes. He is my guru. The pact I had with Baba that he has to come and stand in front of me. He is the Baba in new body. Everything nailed, totally nailed. And then with so much fear, I asked him for Shaktipat, because I've already read about it in blogs. And without any hesitation, he gave it to me on day one. Trust me, I thought he's going to throw me out because of all the garbage that I have. And he gave me Shaktipat. Oh my God.
He's so compassionate. He doesn't throw anybody. You know that. Well,
no, it's all your mind's game, right? Your mind asks you about eligibility. Now I know all of that. Like, there is nothing called eligibility. He decides to show to you, he comes. That's it. Like, because that's what he is. He's a Bholenath.
He's a Bholenath. Yeah, totally.
So that's what happened. That's how I met Mohanji. But I would want to tell this funny incident because we have been going very serious. So I always have the habit of comparison. Not now, but at that point in time, I always had the habit of comparison. Not with anybody, just with my husband. Whatever he gets, I look at it and like compare with what I got. I don't know why. That's a silly game. I think I've been very silly, very, very silly, like very innocent, very silly, all of that. So Mohanji, when we left, he gave us Shiva Kavacham, and then he gave us the iCard, his iCard from his hands. And then he gave us some chocolates, and nothing else mattered to me except those chocolates. So he gave it to him first, then next to me. So I looked at him and looked at my hand. I had very little chocolates compared to what he had. And I didn't know how I have to control my mind and thought process when you're in front of a guru, because I have no experience about all.
Yeah.
So Mohanji took some more chocolates and gave it to my hand and said, "Happy?" My God, such an embarrassing moment that is. From then on, I'm very, very cautious what I think, because he's reading it all. He's knowing it all. Like he can't.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Fantastic. Okay, so this was, yeah, that was a good segue. To just then continuing on your journey with Mohanji, how how has it been? I'll just ask like this, a very open-ended question. How has
You
it
know
been?
an answer or you want to have a reply?
I want an answer.
You know, the journey with Mohanji, if you really want to have a journey with Mohanji, then that means you will be in the middle of the fire pit.
You'll be in the middle of
Fire pit, burning.
we are already in the fire pit.
First 1 year with Mohanji was all like sweet, sweet, very nice. Kriya initiation happened, Kailash happened, Shidi retreat happened, all of that great things happened, you know. And then once you decide that you become from a devotee, you become a disciple, the journey begins, the chiseling starts.
Absolutely. It starts from all directions.
And then the moment you decide that from a disciple you will become an acharya, finish, murder. To a point where he will never exist. You can't exist
We
there.
can't exist. We are already, that's why I said we are already in the fire pit. There is nothing to it except being in the fire pit.
Yeah.
There is nothing to it. No, but for the audience, for people that don't know Mohanji or don't know, we have been blessed, Didi, that we have opportunity to travel this journey with Mohanji. But there are going to be so many people in the future that may not even get a glimpse of him, right? So for people like them, if they are watching this video, they should know as to just a little bit more. So from your perspective, if you want to share a little bit more about your journey with Mohanji.
My journey with Mohanji, like, I mean, see, Mohanji is different to everybody. There is no one sort of Mohanji. Like, to me, for many people, they say Mohanji is very compassionate, kind and all of that. For me, he has always been this rude drill master.
Me too. Me too. It's a drill master only. I don't know why people say I feel the same way. And and I always say, I used to say to Baba, thank God I met somebody. I used to say to Baba, I'm like, where is compassion in you? I don't see compassion.
Exactly.
Why do
And to nail
people
it
carry?
all, and to nail it all, in the recent video, Mohanji had spoken about a master will hit you on the same place where it pains. And I was like, yeah, I know it. You do it all the time.
And I'm like, where is the compassion? Oh my God, that's so funny. My stomach is.
Does that out of his compassion only.
Yeah, yeah.
The chiseling happens only because of his compassion.
This is
Because if he's
compassion.
not going to bring
Absolutely.
you out of the comfort zone, who else will? But you know what? I play this role play with Baba and Mohanji. Like, you know, I know they are all one, but still I play this role play. Like, I run to Baba saying, like, you are my mother, you take care of me. This father is beating me.
I do the same thing. I do the same thing. If I want to complain about Mohanji, I go to Sai Baba. If I want to complain about Sai Baba, I go to Mohanji. I
No,
do
I
the
don't
same
have
thing.
any complaints about Sai Baba. Sai Baba is my love.
No, no, I
But
complain to
Mohanji is
both.
like this ring master and drill master. He trains circus animals there.
No, no, I go to both. I go to both. I said this one is troubling me. Then I go to this one. I'm like, this one is troubling me. I do the same. I do that.
So the journey with Mohanji was very different with me. So I have to narrate a couple of incidents. I know that Mohanji will watch this video at some point in time. He will be laughing, I'm sure. So there was a couple of times in Shirdi retreat. I think that's where I switched from a devotee to a disciple, I think. So he was always rude to me. I asked some questions and he will tell me, look at me straight and like, I don't want to answer you. So from a person who is constantly asking questions, I told you, right? I'm a person who asks a lot of questions. From a person who's asking a lot of questions, I completely stopped asking questions because he said, like, that's your mind question. I don't want to answer. Straight on your face, he will say. And there was another incident that happened is like, we went to Kailash 2017. So before we went to Kailash for 2017, I had this great blessing of meeting Avaduta Nadananda. Avaduta Prashobji was also present. So Taramai presence was there. The presence was there, and so many other masters' presence were there, I guess. So during that program, at that point in time is when Rajesh was narrating us a flight incident. Do you know the flight incident where the entire flight was about to be taken down? There was supposed to be a massive accident in the flight, and Mohanji chose to travel in that flight with
Oh,
Rajesh.
yes, I know about that. Yes.
So Rajesh was making fun that, oh, Mohanji chose to travel in the flight to save me. And Mohanji was like, oh, do you think I'm a fool? It's the entire flight of people that he had saved.
Yeah.
And he chose to be in that flight and like all of that. There is a blog about it. So
Yeah.
So at that point in time, all these discussions didn't happen at that point in time. But I was asking the question, why did you choose to travel in that flight? And he looked at me and said, I don't want to answer you. And then the same question was asked by another person from South Africa, and he gave a massive explanation. I felt like, hell, what the heck is this?
And he'll let you witness it. He does that. When he's doing something and he's not giving you something, he will make sure you witness him giving it to somebody else.
Yeah, and then you feel so low, right?
No, yeah, you feel so low. You feel so low.
That person's question is not mine question. My question is mine.
Exactly. He's done that with me all the time. I'm like, that's not okay.
Yeah, so at that point in time, he makes you feel low, but at the same time, he's working differently with different people at the same time. That person is not associated with Mohanji anymore. If I now look back at it, at that point in time, that person is not with Mohanji anymore. She has changed paths. But then I'm still with Mohanji. So it was maybe a test. I don't know. I'm just assuming maybe it was a test, or maybe it was a thing that I didn't need that answer at that point in time, but that person needed it. Or it could be that he was making me go more within from without, because that's what I was. I was always outside. He was making me go more within. Now I think back and look back, and all of these things put together, I am getting all my answers only from within. I'd never had to go out. I've stopped reading books. I've stopped reading blogs. I don't read anything because whatever I need is given to me. And the answer comes from within. So that is what journey with Mohanji. So don't think for the people who are watching, I'm saying not for you. Mohanji is extremely multidimensional. We can't put him into any kind of a frame and say this is how he is. The moment we say this is how he is, we have completely got it all wrong. Sorry. So he works differently with each individual. He will be sitting in front of the same audience, say 300, 500 people, but then each individual he will be working with differently.
Because the constitutions are different. Everybody's constitution is different. And what applies to me, what would apply to Rakshita may not apply to me. What would apply to me would not apply to Rakshita. So it's just,
he plays with your awareness levels, right? He plays based on your awareness levels, and he plays with your awareness levels to bring out an outcome that will be very useful to you. Absolutely. So my journey with Mohanji has been this. So from he has always been a drill master. He's even now, and I tell him that, okay, fine, burn me. This is exactly what I wrote to him. There was a time in last December, they said like, you all can write to Mohanji and in an email address, whatever you want to express. I wrote these exact same words. If you decide to burn me, don't do it halfway through. Burn me fully. Burn me fully to a point where you wear me as your ashes. I don't want this half-baked story.
And he did a very good job, Didi. He did a very good job. Okay, fantastic. So, so about then how did you decide to become an acharya? What decision led you to become an acharya?
It was just an internal call. See, I've always been this person. As I said, I've always been this person who shares my knowledge. So if I can do that as a part of a tradition, then why not? So I mean, I didn't have a major thought process about it. Even before becoming an acharya, I was conducting meditation sessions, and information flows through me. Even then, at some point in time, I realized that information is flowing through me. It took a long time to actually accept the fact that information is flowing through me, because your mind always plays this game. So I know that information has started flowing through me, and I'm connecting well and all of that. So acharya was just like an icing on the cake. So it's like, now you can do with much more. You have a badge, you have a certificate, you can do this now. But even before that, I think I was being trained. So I used to always wonder, why would Baba make me, I mean, when I say Baba, understand it's Mohanji, it's Datta. For me, Mohanji is Mohan Datta. I call him Mohana Datta. He's Datta, he's Sai, he's everything, one for me. So I always ask Baba, like, why did you make me read so much? Why did you make me read so much? Like, I've read so many books. That's why I'm able to speak on various topics, right? Like, because I've read so many books, and I'm able to understand beyond what the book is even saying sometimes. Because I read one statement, I feel like I want to just sleep. It makes you feel heavy and you just want to sleep. And when I'm in that half sleep state, I get more perception and widen my perception about what is happening. I get the entire background of how it was written and what is it. So I get a lot of answers. I get a lot of, and as I said, it took a long time for me to even understand that I'm getting this, I'm channeling, or I'm getting this information. It took a very long time to even understand that this is what I am. I didn't accept it for a long time. I was rejecting it. I was even fighting with Baba, like, why are you giving me all of these? Like, I can't handle these and all of that. But then now I'm accepting, and if it has been given to me, there is a reason. So I've often asked Baba, why did you make me go through so much? Why did you make me read so much? And now I understand that it's because I have to deal with various kinds of people as an acharya, right? I have to deal with various kind of situations, various kind of people, various kind of minds, to be precise. And then all of this information now comes together, because if I have to break a very, very tough concept into a very simple thing, for example, there was one question that was asked, and I surprised myself with the answer. So then when I explain it, then you will know why Baba made me go through so much. So there was somebody who asked me, if God has been very compassionate, why didn't he create human beings in the same consciousness? Why is people having different consciousness and different orientations? If God is so compassionate, why can't he make the change, and then everybody would be evolved, right? So I explained about the earth's contract of, like, not the earth is full of free will. There is no place like earth. That's why many beings come to earth, because earth is full of free will. When you have the free will and you do the right thing, that is when you are actually doing the right thing. Otherwise, you're just forced into doing something, right? So first I explained the earth contract. Then second thing, like, I gave an example that, if somebody has come from a donkey's lifestyle, he has lived a life of a donkey for, say, 10 lifetimes, and then there is another person who has lived a life of a dog for 10 lifetimes, and then both have come in a human body, what will their mindsets be? The donkey will be in the victim mode, like, okay, I'm here to carry the burden of everybody. I'm here to carry be the victim of everybody. Put all your thing on me and I will carry. And they will be in the victim mode. And a dog coming from a very powerful state of, I'm a protector, their mindset will be, I'm the guardian. I'm here to take care of my herd. Two people, human body, but their consciousness levels and awareness levels is completely different. Why? Because they are coming from a different background. So I was able to effortlessly explain this to that person. And don't think that I did. This explanation is just flowing through me, and I caught myself by surprise. Oh, that's a great example. Like, this is a beautiful example to explain the difference in the awareness and consciousness, right? And that person was very convinced. So why am I saying this? Is like, Baba made me read so much so that I can even break the most difficult concept into a more palatable, edible format and give it to people. And that, I think, that's where I've been trained. And this training, I don't think has happened only from this lifetime. I very strongly believe that I've been trained for many lifetimes to get to here. This is just like the finishing.
Finishing. And anyways, somebody had said Mohanji is a finishing guru.
Yeah. Mohanji himself spoke to me. So in 2017, Kailash, I had this beautiful opportunity of traveling from Delhi to Lucknow by car, and from Lucknow to Nepalganj by car again with Mohanji. And at that point in time, I think this was in Lucknow airport when we were departing to Nepalganj. Mohanji spoke about how he is a melting pot for all traditions. So, we have this Datta tradition, we have this Nath tradition, we have this Kriya tradition, we have multiple traditions. It's all originated from Datta only, but then it had various frames to it because of Navnats and Navnarayanas and all of that. But Mohanji said that I'm a melting pot for everybody. So now everything is coming together into one. So he's a melting pot for everything. So he's a Raja Yogi, he's a Karma Yogi, he's a Kriya Yogi, he's everything. That's why I said it's very difficult to understand Mohanji, right? Even as Acharyas, I don't think we have even got a glimpse of who he is.
No way.
He is. I mean, if I have to really understand him, I have to become him. That's the only way.
That's the only way. I agree. Yeah. And I agree. And I think even as Acharyas, our goal is to be Mohanji. There is no other way to be except to be Mohanji.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is no other way. What you're going to do is be Mohanji. That's exactly what it is. Fantastic. Didi, I don't know if you realize, but we've been recording for an hour. We've done an hour, so we will have to conclude. So before I conclude, I wanted to ask, I asked this question to everybody I interview, and I wanted to ask you as well. Did you have, or what was that absolutely wow moment when you were with Mohanji and you just went, wow, oh my God. Did you have that moment with Mohanji?
Every moment.
Every moment. But you have to give me one answer. Everybody gives me this answer, but you have to give me one, like something that completely blew your mind.
So we went to Machu Picchu, and people who are with me can vouch for this. We went to Machu Picchu. We were doing the Mother Earth ceremony there, and then it was supposed to be, the weather forecast was supposed to be raining. But then Mohanji said, go ahead with it. So we went ahead with that ceremony. And when we were doing the ceremony, it was scorching hot. Scorching hot. Trust me, the weather forecast was raining. So then when we were about to finish the ceremony, I saw Mohanji doing this, right? And then I saw the clouds were moving, and I don't think how many people saw it because they were all busy with the ceremony, watching what the person is doing and all of that. And I was only sitting and watching Mohanji, and Mohanji, like, frequently he's doing something, he's talking to somebody. I know that he's talking to somebody, he's doing something. So I was constantly watching him, and he was doing that, and he had this smile. You know, he has this very innocent smile when you look at
the smile. I know the smile.
As if he's not doing anything.
Yeah, I know the smile. I know the smile. This smile has come my way a couple of times. It has come my way a couple of times.
So then I saw that he's actually either working with clouds or something. And then at one point in time, I saw that the place that we are sitting had a ring. And that ring had scorching heat on us that we couldn't even bear. Around that ring is all full of clouds, waiting for the moment to burst into rain. Right? And then we all finished our ceremony, and we all went and had our lunch, and then we went into the bus. And when we went into the bus, Mohanji was the last one to get into the bus. Fortunately, I was sitting in the bus that Mohanji was, and Mohanji was the last one to get into the bus. And he asked the question, "Is everybody in?" And we all said, "Yes, everybody is in. The bus is full." And we were just. He got into the bus, and then the first drop stuck in the front windscreen, and then it's poured and poured and poured.
I actually know about this. I know this experience because there were a few people from Canada who came there, and they saw this, and they said, and when Mohanji sat in the bus, Mohanji said, the clouds are very angry. They want to come down.
Yeah. So for a long time, he's been doing this.
Yeah, he's doing this. I know. So they were very
angry. See, I am never in for any masters doing any magic, right? So I always pray to Baba that you don't have to prove your presence to me by doing any magic, because they are much more than that. They are waiting to give you that. Why would you bring them to just a person who does magic? But then even then, when they do all of this, we become like a child, like, oh wow, like wow. So
I'm the same way. I'm not somebody who runs after miracles. It's just I'm grateful because being with Sai Baba, we've experienced so many miracles. So I'm not somebody who goes crazy for them. But I do agree, when one of something little happens like this, just the inner child in you gets excited, it starts clapping. So I totally understand. Okay, Didi, I think we're going to conclude. I don't have enough words as to how much fun I had having this conversation with you. It was so amazing. And I learned so much from you. So thank you so much for this interview. I would love to do another round 2 with you at some point. We can definitely figure it out. But I just want to take this moment to thank everybody, and thank you, Didi, for joining for the interview. And to learn more about Mohanji, you can visit the official website, www.mohanji.org. Thank you so much. Thank you, Didi, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Jai Mohanji.
Thank you so much. Jai Mohanji.